Today on the Baneful Says podcast, we're going to be discussing YouTube taking over podcasting, and that's about it, so go ahead and stick around. If I had a klaxon alarm, I would sound it right now because, red alert, YouTube is destroying and taking over podcasting, oh my god! It's true. YouTube just launched a podcast landing page, Lookout World. The URL is youtube.com/podcasts. And if you're watching the video version of this show, you will see some screenshots from this landing page. It shows popular episodes of video podcasts from people like Jake Paul, the Full Send podcast, and the H3H3 podcast. Oh my god! Why am I behaving this way? I don't know why I'm acting this way. I am coming across like the worst person ever. Then we have a recommendation section based on your subscriptions and your viewing history. Then we have popular podcast channels, like your standard podcaster like NBC News. And then there's a breakdown of podcasts by category like comedy, true crime, sports, music, TV, and film. I am sure you can guess what my opinion of this is, but I think this is going to be another product from Google and YouTube that is destined to die. And I think that for a multitude of reasons. The first one being, I can't imagine any scenario where somebody is thinking, I would love to find a new podcast to listen to. How am I going to do that? I know. I will go to youtube.com/podcasts. That's where I'll discover the latest and greatest and newest and most interesting content out there. I don't think that will ever happen. I think that the majority of discoverability on YouTube for the content creator, as well as a viewer finding a new channel or a new podcast, stems from the recommendation algorithm, whether it be the YouTube homepage where you log in and it just shows you a bunch of videos, or the up next algorithm where next to a video you're watching, it shows you a bunch of related content or content that you might be interested in. So unless they make some kind of change and update to make this much more appealing for the potential podcast listener or viewer, I think it's just going to be destined to be a forgotten page on YouTube. The second reason I think this is, there's almost nothing interesting or exciting on this page. And I mean no offense to any of the podcasters who are shown on this page, but it's exactly who you would expect to see on a podcast landing page, on podcast recommendations on YouTube. It's exactly who you would expect to see. What I mean by that is it's just another top 10 list of the most popular talk shows on YouTube, with the addition of news networks. With the addition of news, because I don't know how they did it, but news networks, legacy media has found a way to weasel their way in here as well. First, they did it to the search results. Oh, you gotta push down all the YouTubers and surface us. We are the legacy. We are proper. They are all scum, disinformation, bottom of the barrel. Push them down, push us up. Lift us up, we are the greatest, and do it for free. But it seems like somehow they have done it again, because now, according to YouTube, nightly news broadcasts are considered podcasts? What? No, that's not how it works. These are not podcasts. These are nightly news shows. Nightly news broadcasts. Broadcasts and podcasts are differently. Very sibilant microphone I am on today. You'll hear more about it later. But back to the topic at hand, I can't imagine a world where I just broadcast the audio or the video from Firefly, a TV show, and say, well, you know what? This is now a podcast. No, it's still a TV show. I'm just sending it to you over RSS, or in this case, I'm uploading it to YouTube, which I had been doing for years, and it's the exact same thing that I broadcast on the nightly news. It's stupid. These are not podcasters. These are legacy media. This is legacy media news broadcasts. I don't get it. The third reason is currently there doesn't seem to be much incentive through this page for podcasters to start uploading to YouTube. What I mean by that is I am fairly certain that the chances of small independent podcast creators like myself getting on this page are close to, if not exactly zero. I can't imagine any world where the Bandrew Says podcast gets thrown on this page. Don't imagine it. I can't imagine it. It will not happen. But on top of that very selfish and self-centered analysis, I also don't see any large audio-first content creators on here. I don't see any of the legacy podcast creators included on this list. That's not what it is. It's a list of a bunch of YouTubers who have YouTube talk shows that they have also started to distribute through RSS. So technically, yes, they are podcasts. But to me, it seems as though a lot of them are lacking that edge that comes from being an audio-first, independent, platform-agnostic show. They are YouTube first. And it shows in the type of content they make. Not necessarily saying that's bad, but it loses the really big appeal for podcasts to me. And on that note, the fourth reason why I think this is destined to fail is, in my opinion, podcasting is interesting because it is platform agnostic, because it is independent. That allows for crazy people to talk and say their crazy nonsense, and you get to witness people losing their minds in an audio format. It is so much fun hearing conspiracy theorists go crazy and say stupid things. But being that this is YouTube, you lose a lot of that. And the reason for that is because YouTube has to worry about brand friendliness, being brand safe, because they are advertiser driven. Podcasts, you don't have to earn any money. It can purely be a hobby, and you could host your own audio files and distribute them. Nobody can take that down, or I guess somebody technically could. It's just a lot more difficult. So in my opinion, YouTube podcasts are just going to end up being the same milquetoast, boring, bore you to death type coverage that YouTube as a whole has become. And as a person, as a podcaster who uploads to YouTube, I lump myself in that category. I am very boring, milquetoast, inoffensive nonsense, so I'm allowed to say it. Nobody else talk bad about YouTube. It's like, hey, you can't talk bad about my brother, but I can. Don't talk bad about him. That's my brother. Hey, brother, you're an idiot. You get the point. Don't talk bad about YouTube. I can, because I upload my podcast there, and I'm the boring milquetoast content creator. But with all of that being said, what can you do about this? What can you do to leverage this? First thing I want to say, I know that I have been poo-pooing this, saying this is going to fail, saying that this isn't necessarily great, but I have been a huge advocate for video podcasts on YouTube for years at this point because I think the discoverability that it offers is outstanding, but more importantly, the reason I love uploading to YouTube is because of the comments section and the community. Building an audience and building a community just through audio-only podcasts is incredibly difficult because there's no aggregate comment section currently. I think Podcasting 2.0 is working on it, but currently there's not a widespread, accepted, centralized comment section. On YouTube, I understand that is platform dependent, but YouTube is so large and so popular and it has so many users that a lot of listeners already have accounts and it is very easy for them to engage. That's why I love it and why I do advocate for starting a video podcast if you have the bandwidth, if you have the time, if you have the expertise. It is very expensive and it is very, very time consuming. If you add a video element to your show, I would say it doubles, triples, maybe even quadruples the production time. I could edit an audio podcast within 15 minutes probably, but once I add multiple angles, do any kind of video effects, set up a camera when I'm doing a test in another room, it adds so much time. It makes this a much longer process. It takes 8-10 hours to produce a 30-45 minute show. It's crazy how much time it takes. You may think it's not worth it, and I get it. I get it, because sometimes I think that too. Until I start thinking about the comments, the distribution, the discoverability, the likes, dislikes, all the stuff that YouTube does, I think is incredibly valuable. And don't just think this is exclusive to YouTube. I think having a video podcast on Rumble or Odyssey or any other video hosting platform that has a pretty big viewership is going to be valuable or potentially valuable. But the real thing that you can do with this information is nothing. There really doesn't seem to be anything that you can do or need to do to benefit from this, because I don't think many of us will benefit from this. To try to get some kind of insight, I tweeted at YouTube and I actually got a response. This is how that interaction went. Good morning, Sunday morning, YouTube creators and YouTube liaison. Given the rollout of youtube.com/podcasts, I'm curious if you have documentation for what YouTube views as podcast best practices. I would be very interested to understand how to get the most out of this new feature. Thanks. Team YouTube replied, we use a variety of signals to algorithmically show content on the youtube.com/podcasts destination page. Its goal is to highlight vids across some of our top podcast categories to help viewers discover interesting and relevant uploads. And I responded, do podcasters need to add a hashtag in the description or a tag to inform the algorithm that the upload is a podcast? I just want to make sure that the podcasters who spend hours producing the video version of the show are not missing out on this feature. Thanks. And they never responded to that follow-up question, so that's where the story ends. Completely useless interaction. I wrote a script out of how this conversation went in my head. This is how the conversation just went. Hi, my name's Bandrew, and I spend a lot of time and money producing video podcasts. Being that you're a company who is now starting to focus on distributing and discovering and surfacing podcasts, can you share any kind of documentation to illustrate what you believe the best type of podcasts are so we can understand your approach to the entire medium?
Well, hello there, creator. Thank you so much for contributing to our platform. The algorithm, more algorithm, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep algorithm.
Yeah, that was not helpful at all. Can you offer me anything that is actionable? Anything that will help me as a podcaster producing content on your platform? Anything at all? One piece of information.
Funny question. No.
I apologize for that. That may be one of the lamest and dumbest things I have ever done on this show. I thought it would be funny. Nope, not funny at all. Here's what I think YouTube should have done. Back in March of this year, I think it was episode 295, I talked about YouTube's announcement regarding podcasts, regarding podcasts. They said, we're going to give out podcasting grants to get podcast creators on the platform. Do you remember that? They said they were going to give $50,000 to $300,000 to content creators and podcast networks to start producing video podcasts on their platform. I have not heard from a single podcaster or of a single podcaster who got a grant from YouTube to make video podcasts. To be completely fair, it's possible that a bunch of podcasters got this money and I just haven't heard from them because why would I? Maybe they don't want to broadcast that they got a grant from YouTube because it makes them look bad. Maybe I just don't run in the circles that the podcasts exist in who receive the money. Maybe that's the case. So it's possible that a bunch of shows did get this money, a bunch of networks did get this money, and I just haven't heard about it. But what I would have done is I would have gone to the OG podcasters, the podcasters who have been doing it audio only for over a decade. The first show that I would have gone to is probably based on my interests, but I'll explain why I would have gone to him. I would have gone to Jim Harold and said, Jim Harold, here's $300,000, make your shows. Make them all. The reason I would have done that, Jim Harold has been the paranormal podcaster for 15 years, I think at this point, 2006, 2007. So he has that Providence? He's really big in podcasting. He is the paranormal podcaster. But on top of that, he has shown interest in producing videos on YouTube, and he has made very high quality videos. So he has shown the ability to put money to use to make good quality videos. He has shown over 15 years that he produces high quality and popular content. To me, he seems like the perfect candidate to get that money, to get a grant for $300,000 to produce all of his video podcasts, to produce video podcasts for all of his extremely long-running and extremely popular shows. But who got these grants? I don't know. I am certainly hoping that the recommendations on this page right now do not indicate who got the money. Because who did we see there? NBC News, MSNBC, Fox News. Wasn't there another grant program a couple of years ago? And didn't they end up giving money to the news networks to start producing content on YouTube? They gave the money to companies that did not need the money to make videos because their entire business is to make high quality video. Yet they gave the money to the news companies. I certainly hope that's not the case here. Otherwise, it's money completely and utterly wasted. Completely and utterly wasted. I would have gone to Jim Harold and said, Jim, $300,000, make video podcasts. Would have been perfect. Would have been a perfect way to spend that money. But no, Jim didn't get the money as far as I know. I haven't seen a bunch of video podcasts from Jim, so I'm going to assume he didn't get $300,000 from YouTube. I'm guessing he would have posted about it or something. Hey, I'm teaming up with YouTube to produce more video content. I haven't seen a single thing about that. Maybe I don't run in the right circles. That is it for that piece of news. The next thing I want to discuss, I'm not going to discuss too in depth. YouTube is the biggest podcast platform. Is your mind blowing? Is your mind blowing? When I saw this, my mind left my body. I lost my damn mind that this is the case. I found a study from Cumulus Media back in May. I will link this study in the description, but what it finds, of all the podcast platforms, YouTube is the biggest. They say that 6 in 10 weekly podcast listeners say they prefer podcasts with videos. When asked how they prefer listening to podcasts, 28% say they like a podcast video they actively watch while listening, and 29% indicate they have the video in the background / minimized while listening. 43% say they use audio only with no video. And then when we get to the stats as far as what the biggest podcast platforms are, in April 2022, Apple Podcasts was 15%, Spotify was 23%, and YouTube was 25%. And they conclude the article or the study with key takeaways, the first one being 6 in 10 weekly podcast listeners prefer video. Interest in the video experience is highest among podcast newcomers who started listening in the last year. Also, those who prefer a video podcast experience overwhelmingly cite YouTube as the platform they use for most products. Podcast video has greater eyes-on advertising attentiveness than linear television. And the final one, YouTube by a nose, is now the most used podcast platform in the US. Do with that information what you will, but like I mentioned, I will link the study in the episode notes in case you want to read a little bit more in depth, understand the study, look at all the stats. But when I saw that, it blew my damn mind. It blew my mind that YouTube has become so popular for podcasts. I would like to know how they measured it. I would also like to know how they're measuring a listen, if it has to be a full podcast episode, how long somebody has to listen. Does it include podcast clip videos, which I think are probably one of the biggest viewed podcast products on YouTube? But 25% or 26%. I know that there are some shows that refuse to distribute to Spotify and hate Google and YouTube and will not publish there. That's 50% of the market. 50% of the market is on Spotify and YouTube. So if the goal is to get in front of as many people as possible, get the largest audience, seems crazy to forgo Spotify and YouTube. I get why some people will do it. I understand because Spotify clearly is willing to spend a lot of money to get a good quality show on their network. You'll have exclusivity issues, but yeah, they'll pay millions of dollars for a show. So I get why people are holding out. And I understand why people hate YouTube. YouTube might even just kick you right off depending on what your show's about. But for milquetoast boring content creators like me, who doesn't care about the money for podcasting, I'm going to send to Spotify and spend time and money uploading to YouTube. All right, that is it for the news. Now let's talk about what I've been testing. You have been listening to it. Audio Technica. This is the Audio Technica AT4033A. The AT4033A. I'm going to be reviewing it. I wanted to use it for an entire show. In my headphones, it sounds very sibilant. Sibilant. So I'm going to be very aggressive with a de-esser because if it sounds like this when I am monitoring it back, yoicks! Big ol' yoicks! I could be mishearing. You shouldn't be making decisions based on real-time monitoring because that's not reliable. Just not. But keep your eyes open because I will be reviewing this one very shortly. $400 cardioid-only condenser mic. This may be the microphone that Isto uses. Isto, I-S-T-O, is a YouTuber, a music YouTuber. Absolutely fantastic channel. He's been at it for over 10 years, just uploading songs and covers and awesome music. And he just does it because he loves it. He is never blown up. Fantastic channel, Isto. All right, let's jump to what you had to say. And the first comment comes from David Kennerly, and he says, Maori is pronounced Maori, with Ma pronounced like Mao, as in the chairman Mao of China. David, thank you very much. So it is not Maori, it is not Maori, it is Maori. Maori. Now I know, now everybody listening knows that if you see it spelled out, Maori, M-A-O-R-I, it is Maori. I almost forgot how to say it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David. I appreciate it. Next comment comes from Nick, and he says, 1 hertz is 60 cycles per minute. It used to be called CPM/CPS in older electronics before it was named in honor of Heinrich Hertz. This is a long way of saying that 4 hertz is 4 times 60 cycles, so your watch beats 4 times per second, not 8. Nick, thank you very much for the comment. You are not alone in calling me out for this, saying, hey, you said the watch is 4 hertz, but then you said it beats 8 times per second. You, Bandrew, good sir, are a fool. You are a fool. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I am right. I am right, but you are right to call me out because I worded it in the worst way possible and I interchanged words that ought not have been interchanged. I used the word beats at one part of the description when I should have used the word oscillation. So the way that it works, the watch has a mechanical movement and there's a balance wheel that rotates back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This balance wheel will oscillate 4 times a second, 4 hertz. And an oscillation is calculated as a movement of the balance wheel to position 2 and then back to position 1, so an entire movement of the balance wheel. So a balance wheel will go one way and then back the other. That is one oscillation. That is one oscillation. It does this 4 times a second, but then you have the seconds hand on the watch. When the balance wheel moves one direction, the seconds hand will beat once, When the balance wheel goes back the other direction, then the seconds hand will beat again. So for every oscillation, the seconds hand on the watch will beat 2 times. That's why a 4 Hz watch has a beat frequency of 8 times per second. So I was correct. I just worded it in one of the worst ways possible. I am a stupid idiot person. And if you are watching the video, you may have seen some footage here. I'm going to pull out my macro lens, go get a watch that has an open case back, a display case back, and show you the balance wheel in slow-mo if I can, as well as the seconds hand in slow-mo if I can. And you can see with your own eyes, because seeing a watch, a mechanical watch through the display case back, it's what just blew my mind when I first saw that. Holy crap, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of machinery. So I will show that to you if you're watching the video and you are interested. All right, that is it for what you had to say. Now let us jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Welcome to the Ask Bandrew segment, the segment where you ask questions and I respond and answer to them. If you have questions that you want answered, go to AskBandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio, video, and text. I do prefer audio and video submissions sub 1 minute because then we get to hear how you sound on your audio equipment. We get to keep the show just flowing along nice and smoothly, and you get a break from hearing me talk. It is a win-win-win. Or a win-win. There was only 2 parties in that, right? Yeah, 2 people won. Win-1. I'm always confused now after the whole bung fiasco. Whenever I use a past tense, I'm always wondering, is that correct? I am just a complete dummy. All right, let's go to the first voice submission. This comes from Nava from Australia. Take it away, Nava.
Hey Bandrew, this is Nava from Australia here. First, just wanted to say how much I've been enjoying your voice submissions on these podcast episodes. Your suggestions always seem to help them out, and I've learned a lot of tricks myself, so thank you. Right now, I'm speaking to a Sennheiser MKH416 running into a PreSonus Studio 68C in an untreated room. So my question for you on this podcast is, can you mitigate background noise by utilizing proximity effect and reduce room reflections in an untreated room by speaking at a lower volume? I was thinking you could EQ some of the lower end out in that case. And as a backup question, what are some tips to soundproofing a small walk-in closet? And have you ever done the pillows around the mic strat before? How much can you get from that compared to a treated walk-in closet? Thanks, Andrew. Have a great rest of your day.
Nava, thank you very much for the voice submission. Those are some excellent questions. The first question you ask is, can you decrease room reflections by getting closer to the microphone and speaking quieter? The answer to both of those points is yes. First, let me explain why I sound this way. I am currently about 2 feet away from the AKG C414XL2, catchy name guys, cardioid mode, connected to the 2i2 3rd gen gain at 3 o'clock. To answer the question, as far as speaking quieter, the reason that will help with reducing reflections is you're reducing the amount of energy in your voice, meaning fewer of those sound waves are going to have the energy to hit the other side of the wall and bounce back. For example, now I am whispering and I hate how I sound, but I will go ahead and increase the level in post to make sure that they are comparable, my normal speaking volume and my whispering, and you should hear fewer reflections making it into the microphone because less of the sound waves leaving my mouth are going to make it all the way across the room to bounce off the wall, make it all the way back, bounce off the wall behind me, and then make it into the front of the microphone. But as far as the second point, getting closer to the microphone to reduce reflections, currently I'm still about 2.5 feet away. I am speaking quiet. Make sure to take note of how many reflections you're hearing in the recording. Now let me go ahead and get closer, and I will explain why that is helping with reducing the reflections. Now I'm about 6 inches off of the AKG, and if you listen closely, you should be hearing quite a bit less in terms of reflections making it into the microphone. The reason this happens is as I get closer to the microphone, I am increasing that signal to noise ratio. In this case, we're referring to background noise, and that means that in the recording, my voice is going to be even louder than the background noise in comparison to when I was 2 feet away. So let me go ahead and give you a couple really quick back-to-back comparisons so you can hear them. Here is how I sound 2 feet away from a microphone in a completely untreated space with a normal speaking volume. This is how I sound 2 feet away from a microphone in an untreated room while I am whispering. And here is how I sound 6 inches off of a microphone in an untreated space while speaking quietly. Future Bandrew chiming in here, I also want to point out how different those two performances were. When I'm farther away from the microphone speaking my normal volume, it sounds much more natural to me. But when I get right on top of the microphone and whisper, it sounds very weird and I don't like it. And if you're producing this type of voiceover work for a client, it's going to dictate if that type of performance, if that type of presentation is acceptable. I know very few voiceover products would probably be acceptable if you just got right on top of the microphone and whispered into it. But if you spoke with a powerful voice, if you supported your voice, I think that is much more likely to be an acceptable presentation style. Okay, let's go to the second question, and you ask, any tips on soundproofing a walk-in closet? First, I have zero experience with soundproofing a walk-in closet. Also, I don't have a walk-in closet. And third, soundproofing and sound treatment are very different. I recorded a quick sample in the closet, so let's go ahead and jump to footage that I filmed yesterday so you can hear what my thoughts are. All right, now I am sitting in a closet and recording, and yes, make your jokes, Bandrew's in the closet, get better material. I am sitting in here recording to make a point. Unless the closet you are recording in is extremely well treated, I think this can actually be detrimental. What I mean by that is, as a room gets smaller, it's going to become much more difficult to deal with, meaning you're going to have to be much more aggressive and thorough with your treatment. Because as the room is decreasing in size, that's going to make sound sources reach the walls much more quickly and bounce around with much more energy. So if you're in a small room, it's going to sound like you're in an incredibly small room unless the room is completely dead. And I mean completely dead. Because even though I have plenty of clothes in this closet to absorb audio and try to reduce the reflections, undoubtedly, you can still tell that I'm in a small closet. It still sounds like I am in a small room. Because this room is not perfectly treated. It is not perfectly dead. And because of that, there are some reflections that remain in the recording that are still indicating or conveying or broadcasting the type and size of room I'm in, so it still sounds like I'm in a small closet. And that's the entire point I'm trying to make. If you are going to be recording in a small walk-in closet, a cludio, as Adam Curry would call it, I highly recommend treating it extremely well and thoroughly and completely, because there will still be some reflections and it will indicate that you are recording in a small space. And the third question you have you used the pillow trick around a microphone? If so, how much benefit can be made? I have not used the pillow effect. I will point out something that I learned from a Booth Junkie video. He had one of those microphone shields, and he made a very good point. If you're trying to reduce the amount of reverb that makes it into the recording, where is the most reverb making it into the microphone? The front of the capsule. That's where it's most sensitive. That's where most of the reverb is coming into the mic. And with these types of devices, Where are you leaving open? You are covering the sides and the rear of the microphone with one of these sound shields, or in this case with pillows. And what's the one spot that's still open? The most sensitive part. So all the reverb coming from behind you is still going to get right into the microphone. So I have no experience doing that. If somebody else has tried it, leave us a comment on YouTube. Let Nava know, but I have not tried it. Keep in mind, you are still leaving the most sensitive part completely open to reverb. All right, next we have a voice submission from Zurin from Germany. Take it away, Zurin, or Surin.
Hello, Bandrew. My name is Sören, I'm from Germany, and I have 2 questions. The first one is, how is your opinion of my audio quality? I'm using a Shure MV7 directly connected to a TC Helicon Go XLR Mini with a well-shielded XLR cable, and I'm in a completely untreated room. Some of my friends say I have a bit of clipping in my voice, but I can't hear it. I have a compressor, a noise gate, and a simple EQ available by default. Do I need some more plugins to sound better, or adjust something? The second one is, I do have a specific sound problem in only a single specific situation. When I play Valorant, only then, after an irregular amount of time, my friends in Discord or TeamSpeak tell me that I sound robotic. But when I monitor myself directly, I can't hear it. And apart from one case, which I will send you a file to, it also isn't noticeable in my recordings during these situations. It seems like only 1 or 2 audio channels are affected, not all. But after a few minutes, it is gone, without me having done something. Do you know what it could be, and why does it only happen in that situation? Thank you for your help, and goodbye.
Auf A ist der Omen.
Da haben sie sich aufgetürzt.
Da sind sie. Auf A ist der Omen.
Da haben sie sich aufgetürzt.
Da sind sie.
Thank you very much for the voice submission, Zurin or Surin. I really do appreciate it. Question 1 is, what are my thoughts on your audio? I think that your audio is fine. I can 100% tell that you are in an untreated space. There is a lot of room tone, a lot of reverb. That's not the biggest deal in the world. Is it my favorite? No, but doesn't have to be. You're clear. I can understand you. That's what really matters. Also, I don't know what your friends were talking about. I did not hear any clipping in your voice submission, but the audio was from a spoken word voice submission, and we all know, if you have ever played a video game, you get very excited. And when you get excited, what happens to your voice? You get louder! I think I may have actually clipped there, which is a perfect example. So it could be that while you're speaking normally and calmly, you are not clipping your microphone, but then when you get excited while you're gaming in Valorant or whatever it is, you start distorting. The other option is, you mentioned you are in Discord. Maybe your friends have your volume in Discord set to 200%. If that's the case, that could very easily lead to you sounding distorted for them. So tell your friends to stop being stupid and turn you down in Discord so you're not at 200%. And the second question you have is, do I know what would cause the robotic issue while you're playing Valorant? I have no data or information on why this would be the case. On my old Mac computer, I had something kind of like this, not exactly the same, but similar, and it would occur when I had way too many plugins in my DAW. What that leads me to believe is this robotic effect stems from the computer being overtaxed and not having enough bandwidth, not having enough power to actually run your microphone and process the audio and send it out and send it in, do all of that. That is my guess. But this is based on Mac and running way too many plugins, and it would just brick my computer, it would just go robotic like that until I shut off plugins. So that's something to consider. Maybe it's that you are really taxing your computer with Valorant. I don't know anything about Windows PCs. I know nothing about video games, but that would be my guess. If anyone else has experience with this, again, I'm passing the buck to the audio listeners and video watchers. If you have experience with this, with video gaming, and your computer being taxed to the point that it causes robotic sounds, let us know in the comments if you know what specifically causes it and if there is a solution. If not, my guess is that it is just your computer's being overtaxed. All right, that is all that I've got for you this week. I do not have a movie of the week. I have been way too busy this week. I thought I was going to have some downtime. It's taken me multiple days to try to watch a single movie. I don't know how that's possible. How am I busier when I am done with my RCP2 review? No idea. Okay, that is it for this week. I appreciate you coming by, watching, and listening. You are incredible. You are amazing. You are the best. Who did that sound like? You are the best. I don't know what character. Is it Rocky or Bullwinkle or something? I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen Rocky and Bullwinkle, actually. So how would I even know? Doesn't matter. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. You are the greatest person in the entire world. I hope you have an amazing week. A Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talk at you. See you then. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Boop.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.